welcome to the bench. How we doing
Hello.
today? How we doing today, Horace?
Pretty good.
I'm doing pretty good too. We got an awesome show for you today. But before we get into that, let's talk about events. What events do we have coming up?
Oh man, so many events.
So many. I only have 4 on here. I didn't actually collaborate with you, so
That's okay. Okay, perfect. You have the one that I couldn't find though. So
okay.
this is great. So this weekend is War in Indianapolis. We will both be there. I'm very excited. This is the best day event in Belgarth. You fight 2 sides in a war, switch sides. It's a lot of fun. There's pumpkins, there's battle, and there's castles.
Oh yeah.
After War, I believe next weekend is October 27th. Is that next weekend? Yeah, that seems wrong. No, that's right. Zombie Candy Apocalypse. That's up in near Rockford, Illinois. I think it's actually in Rockford, that one too. Beyond that, the last big camping event of the year is Winter War on November 6th through 10th. That's in Alabama this year. And then Battle for the Ring will be the first camping event of 2025 in, I think it's like Chino, California, January 16th through 19th, or it's near Chino.
Bifter.
Bifter, yes. And then after that, shortly after, in February 17th, will be Wolfpack Opener in Bloomington, Illinois.
Wolfpack.
Which
All right,
is,
we're gonna add that in.
yes.
We're gonna add that in right now.
Sweet.
Wolfpack opener. We got Wolfpack opener, and then we got what's the dates on Wolfpack opener?
Wolfpack opener is Saturday, February 17th, and it is boxing in a closet. Bring your spear, or come spar, because there's a lot of sparring too off on the side.
I'll be at Wolfpack.
So it's a good event, no matter what you're coming for. If you want a field fight, they're crazy, they're dense, it's a lot of fun. If you want to spar, there's tons of good fighters that come and they just fight the whole time for like 6 hours straight. Actually,
so good. 5 hours.
4
or 5 hours. Yeah.
5 sounds right.
So we're going to war.
Yeah.
Are you going to Zombie Candy Apocalypse?
I will not be going to Zombie Candy Apocalypse. I thought about it, but I don't think I can swing it 2 weekends in a row.
I'm going to Winter War. I think you're skipping that one.
No, I can't go to Winter War.
Are you going to Bifter?
Hope and a prayer. Let's see. Work is crazy right now. I stopped working at 11:30 last night, so and I'm gonna do that again tonight. That's great. I love being one step below executive. I don't know though. Maybe I'll be an executive soon, so that'd be cool. I don't necessarily want that, but could happen. So we'll see how it goes.
If you make it to Bifter, I'll see if I can make it to Bifter too.
Yeah, that would be really fun. Yeah. I really like Bifter. It's a lot of fun. I haven't been since before COVID.
And we're gonna why does the I don't know.
Do I have the wrong one?
Well, it says, why does the Wolfpack opener Facebook event say 2/22?
I swear I just looked at the Wolfpack opener one. Maybe I got the wrong year. That's a common issue that I have, so.
Well, why would it say 22, right? Or I guess
2025 says, yeah, it is on the 22nd. I was looking at the wrong year.
Oops.
Also, whoever created the event for 2025, you put Wolfpack Opener 2024 when you copy and pasted everything in. So, just so you know. So
speaking of events, that brings us to our first sponsor for the evening. This episode is in part sponsored by Warlord Glenn, the Mallet of Providence.
I forgot about that.
Who will be, you can catch Warlord Glenn, the Mallet of Providence, at the following events. In October, he will be at Siege and Siege of the Dreadlands. In November, he will be at CK Endrain and the Border March War of the Rams, an SCA event. In December, he will be at the Wetlands Endrain. In January, he will be at Forging Pangea and Bifter, tentatively. February, there's an event needed. Sounds like Wolfpack opener to me.
Yeah.
And then in March, he'll be at War of the Iron Fist and Spring War. Like I said, this episode is brought to you in part by Warlord Glenn. Warlord Glenn, he's left-handed.
I love this so much. Okay, if Glenn's gonna be at Battle for the Ring,
We might have to make it.
technically,
The Mallard.
I really want to go to Battle for the Ring then.
So our show today is about it's called On the Come Up, and it's about fighters who are up and coming and what we can do to support them. So let's bring in our two guests, shall we? We've got Mad Laddie and Saan. Is it Squire Saan and Squire Mad Laddie?
Well, I mean, I am a squire, but I just don't add it to my
Fair
name.
enough.
I am not a squire. I'm a woman at arms.
Hell yeah, hell yeah.
currently.
Sweet.
Welcome to the bench. And let's check out our event agenda, shall we?
Let's do it.
Agenda for On the Come Up. Who are Mad Laddie and Saan? What are your goals and routine? Describe fighting culture from your perspective. What challenges do you face? How can veterans support you? Give a shout out to your supporters. So let's
Hell
start.
yeah.
Let's start with who are Mad Laddie and Saan. Mad Laddie, you go first.
Okay, cool. I'm Mad Laddie. Like I said, I'm a woman in arms. To Avandro or Ender. We want to go into like my background, where I came, like all that kind of
Yes.
stuff. Is that what I'm
Yes,
doing?
whatever
Okay,
you'd
cool.
like. This is your space.
So I have a background in a whole bunch of stuff. I've been very physical my whole life. So I've done yoga, I danced, I did some martial arts. I ran marathons, like all of the things.
Jesus.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, it was super active. And then kind of crazy, I got COVID in 2021 and it like knocked my lung capacity down. So I haven't been able to like run since then. I like took a whole like left turn. And so getting
Brutal.
into like this part has been like really interesting to like get my activity level back up. But yeah, I started in the game after I met Spicy, who is my fiance. We met
Oh, yeah,
country
congrats.
dancing.
Oh yeah, you met dancing?
So yeah, we met country dancing.
That's amazing.
I'm just calling him out right now. Yeah, it was a great time. And yeah, so it's actually really funny. Maybe this says a little bit about me, but 2 weeks after we met, I went to my first event ever with him. Got in a car, and my parents were like, "Do you trust this guy?" And I was like, "Hell yeah!" And got in a car, and we drove all the way to Iron Fist.
Hell yeah.
Whoa.
And that was my first event ever. We camped. I got really drunk. It was a great time. And I started fighting actually at SKBC of the same year, so 2023 SKBC.
Wait,
Um,
wait. That was your first time fighting?
yeah.
Whoa.
I met her at that event. I didn't realize that was the first time you picked up a stick. That's fucking
Yeah.
wild. Okay.
Yeah, that was the first time I picked
Cool.
up a stick. Serge was like, "Here are the basics," and I was like, "All right, cool." Picked up a stick and was like, "I'm gonna go figure it out." And he was like, "Make sure that you call everything." And I was like, "Yeah, okay, got it." Yeah. Anyway, my unit. I just joined 13. It's a unit down here in the south. It's Spicy's in it. Some good friends of mine, Tater, Martin, whole bunch of people down here that I'm good friends with are in that unit. And so yeah, I just got added in, I think 2 weeks ago now. Whenever I was in Houston, I don't remember. I went to a tournament. I got added into a unit. It was a whole thing.
Hell yeah. Congrats.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Anyway, that's kind of my background.
We're gonna take it to the chat and see if anybody has any questions for Mad Laddie. While we are waiting for some of those questions to potentially queue up, I'm gonna ask you about your name. I feel like it's fairly obvious, but I'm gonna ask anyway. Where did your name come from?
All right, so it's really funny. So this was actually the first time I met 13 at Iron Fist. We were all around like a campfire because it's February and October, and so it was really freaking cold. and we're all around a campfire, and they're all trying to come up with my name. It's a great time, but my full name is Maddie Lamb. It's not my full name, but that's like my nickname and then my last name, right? And so there was like so many like lamb jokes getting thrown out and everything like that, and I was like, no way am I going by Lamb Chop. Like, there's so many Lamb Chop. I was like, I'm not doing it. And then Serge goes, yeah, Mad Laddie. And now my name in his phone is Mad Laddie with a fatty because that's how it follows.
That's
So
so
anyway,
good.
that's the origin of my name.
Oh yeah.
Serge brought it out of his brain palace as we were trying to figure out how to put my name into something that was still similar to my name.
Hell yeah.
That's amazing.
So what would
I
you?
love Brain Palace too. That's a really good one.
Thank you.
Isn't Brain Palace? Isn't that like a mental game that you can play to try to bring back memories or something? Like you unlock, or maybe that's Vault. Maybe I'm thinking of
There's a
something.
term
else.
for it.
There's
Yeah.
right. Like I'm not
Yes,
pulling this out
that
of
is
my
a
ass,
thing.
right?
I actually did an interview with a guy, like he was really nice. And that was like one of his coaching things that he did. Like he taught people how to do that. So
That's so interesting.
yeah.
I'm really uncultured. We'll just say that now.
So what's your favorite fighting style? Like, what's your favorite combo, kit, gear, etc.?
Yeah. Right now, I'm really vibing with single.
Hell yeah. Okay.
Nice.
I'm trying out a whole bunch of different styles with single and kind of pulling it into like my board and flow style and kind of playing around with like watching different people fight single and then taking bits that I like because my body type is very different than like most people that fight. So taking little bits and pieces of things that I like from other people's fighting style and throwing it into it and seeing where it kind of meshes and stuff. It's been really fun. Single is like the one category I've gotten like a 16 streak in a tournament in. So
awesome.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty impressive. Like single is like not usually the combo that people streak on. So that's pretty awesome.
That's pretty fun.
Hell yeah. Elias wants to know, why are you so mad, Laddie?
I don't know. I think I have anger management issues. I don't know.
That's fair. That tracks for a CKer. That just, that makes sense to me.
It comes along with my normal fuck off attitude, so.
Oh, yeah. So let's meet our second guest, Saan. How are you, Saan?
Hello. I'm doing well, actually. Thank you.
What's your story, Saan? Who are you?
So I've actually been I've been playing Belagarth, or Dagger here specifically, for a while. I started Dag at Dragonspire in 2016.
Okay.
And since then, I just showed up to practice every week, and I was a kid at that point. I was like 14 years old, just chilling out, fighting, hanging out with my older homies. And eventually I got to the point where I could go to events, so I started going to day events with Sanok from Dragonspire, and he went on to form the Amtgard Park in Terre Haute Stormcrest, and him and some others went on to form that. And I've been a regular member of that for a while since its inception, and I think 2000, I don't want to say a specific year because I'm going to be wrong, but like about 2019 is when I got really heavy into the Amtgard scene.
Okay.
And that's when I petitioned to join the Rising Wind Scions, and right before they voted on my full member, they ended up disbanding.
Oops.
So
wow.
it is what it is. But after that, COVID hit. I kind of took a hiatus after that. And when I came back from like my, what was it, like 2-3 year hiatus from COVID, I got real heavy into like the technical fighting, the one-on-ones, the competitive mindset, and I spent a lot of time with Maz, Squire Maz, just doing some one-on-ones, getting really good at fighting, running some high-intensity interval drills, doing some block strikes, winner-loser spars, all that fun stuff. And then just recently, before that, Maz gave me a at the time Man-at-Arms belt, and here recently I stepped up to a Squire belt under Warlord Sir Ferrix, so it's been pretty fun with that.
Oh yeah,
sweet.
Any other units or companies you might be a member of, or at one point?
Well, I was a member of the Scions, again, take two, and then it disbanded right after they voted this time, so I got to be a full member this time.
Oh yeah.
But currently I'm like in the vibe check process for fighting company out of Nebraska called the Wayfinders.
Hey,
Oh, sweet.
you'd be a good
Yeah.
fit, I think, for the Wayfinders. That would make a lot of sense.
I've hung out with them a lot, and it's
Yeah.
like we just do nothing but laugh and smile the entire time we're hanging out. So
I
Hell
really like
yeah.
them.
Oh yeah. Well, let's take it back to chat and see if there's any questions for Saan. While that's queuing up, how did you get your name?
So I stole it from my favorite Studio Ghibli film, Princess Mononoke. I just
Mhm.
saw the wolf girl, and I'm like, that's me. That's me. I'm Saan.
Oh yeah.
How did I not know that that was her name? Like, whoa, that's like top 5 favorite movies, and it just like didn't even register. Whoa,
Wild.
I mean, they don't say it much in the movie, so
that's
I
true.
think they say it once, twice, maybe.
Also, my brothers, they're not that much younger than me. They have watched so much anime. This year, I made them watch Princess Mononoke for the first time. They were like, "What is this movie? Why are you making me watch this?" And by the end, they're like tearing and crying and loving, and
Mhm.
this like, "Why have I never seen this before?" I'm like, I don't know.
I can't stand anime. I hate it.
Oh wow.
But every now and again, I'll watch like the cyberpunk anime that came out. I like that because I love I love cyberpunk.
Okay.
So I really
Oh,
like the
okay,
show.
okay.
So like I was like I can
Yeah,
put up
yeah.
with the anime stuff because I love the show. I did. Misty, I love you. I love you. So I watched One Piece and I hated it. I was like, "Ugh," like it was awful to me, because I don't like anime. Let's see, I like that. I kind of like Ghost in the Shell.
Sounds good.
I liked, but like a one-time thing. And then, I don't know. I'll try. You might be able to talk me. You talked me into stretching, and that seemed to work out pretty well. So you might talk me into it.
Wait, do you like Lord of the Rings?
Do you like Lord of the Rings?
You like Princess Mononoke?
Okay.
It's not Lord of the Rings, but like
Very Lord of the Rings esque.
Princess Mononoke is just like, even if it wasn't an anime, it would still be an unbelievable film.
Okay. All right.
Like, yeah, that's just the style it's drawn in, but like the story is just fantastic.
Pickle says Tanith with the Gen X anime opinion. Actually, that's fair. There was an anime from the 80s called Ultraman. And it's not, if you know what Ultraman is, like the weird Japanese like live action show, it has nothing to do with that other than the fact that there is an Ultraman character. And I grew up on that show and I loved it. Like it was so good. So like I liked that one too. That's it. I don't know how we kind of went into anime.
Talking about anime.
It's supposed to be talking
I mean,
about
we're
science.
nerds talking. So.
That's fair.
You mentioned Princess Mononoke and then it just tangents off. Good job bringing us back.
San, what's your favorite weapon combination?
So I kind of bounce between all the styles. Like my favorite of all time is easily spear.
Okay.
I think it's, I don't want to like toot my own horn, but I think it's because it's my best one and I get the most kills with spear. But lately I've been having a lot of fun fighting Florentine and single with people.
Ooh,
I
that's
really
good.
like
Hell yeah.
Florentine because like I feel like my boxing training I've been doing lately kind of helps me with like the multiple lanes of attack and all that fun jazz.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
What would you say? Oops, I should probably finish that sentence that I was typing out. Now I really sound like a Gen X. It's based on that Japanese. Jesus. Okay, sorry.
Damn.
Tanith got
Damn.
canceled today. Last
my gosh.
episode.
Those came out a little.
So the bench was a great show, guys.
Great show until.
Till they were canceled.
What's for? It is a question for both of you. What's your favorite type of scenario or battle game? And it could be literally, and you can say sparring. What's your favorite thing to do?
Ditch.
I would absolutely say that whatever game it is, I go, I'm the other one, and don't listen to the rules, and ditch.
I'm telling you right now, you're both gonna warlord someday. Fuck yeah.
I like the mindless whack game. I like just walking up, hitting people, and then waiting to respawn.
Yeah. I don't like waiting to respawn. This is why I play the battle games and call them a ditch.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
So let's take it back to our agenda. We're going to start with Mad Laddie again. What are your goals and routine?
Okay. My goals, so my long-term goal, for sure, Warlord. Um, in Amp Guard, just in general, I'd love to, work my way up to Warlord. I hit a lot of tournaments right now. I'm really working on my fighting, all of those kinds of things. And then short-term kind of goal in that same sense is right now I'm working on like very specifically like pulling my shots in closer together, so like not pulling back as far on the shot and things like that, and really keeping it in my mid center. So it's a lot of like pelling and things of that nature that I'm working on right now, like hanging up a string in my garage in front of my pel and like putting the sword in front of it, and if it hits the string it's an issue. We reset the whole thing, and so it's like keeping everything like really close and in that same area, because there is parts where you can pull the sword all the way back, right? And it is advantageous, but most of the time it's really good to have really like all your kind of shots kind of closer together. I do pel with a stick that's heavier than my dag stick too, just to work on strength training and things like that. Do you want me to go into my training, like what I like train with too in this area?
Whatever you would like to talk about. That it's your stage.
I guess it is part of my goals, right?
Oh yeah.
So my training goals, hell yeah, is to be able to squat spicy. I'm getting really close.
Damn.
215 pounds.
Damn.
Goal.
Okay, let's go.
Right now I can rep 135 pounds
Hell
on
yeah.
my squat. So I think if I went like one rep, I could do like 175-ish.
Okay.
To be tested. I don't know. I repped 135 on Monday and I'm still fucking sore, so we'll see.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I've got some lifting goals. So I lift like 2 or 3 times a week to kind of help out with. I do like these weird like forearm curl things where like you put like your arm on the bench and you like let it lift and go like this with like a really light weight, and then do it a whole bunch of different ways, and it's killer for my forearms because I got one big forearm and one baby forearm.
Is that
quite a bit different?
Is that your offhand? Your offhand is the baby forearm.
Is my baby? Yeah, it's
yeah.
a lot smaller.
That's awesome.
I would like them to be even one day. Is that a good goal?
I think so.
That's great.
But yeah, to go along with my goals, I go to fighter practice 2 to 4 times a week.
That's how you do it.
I'm really lucky. Yeah, really lucky to live in an area where we have practices that are within an hour away from me 5 times a week.
Whoa.
That's wild.
I'm hitting tourneys as much as possible right now in order to help with my goals. I've hit 4 in the past 6 weeks.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow, that's how you do it.
Yeah, and keeping track of my eating and stuff, making sure that I don't eat like an asshole.
I mean, like
I want to all the time.
Same. But like, especially with how much you work out and fight and stuff, your body's just screaming for calories all the time.
Yeah.
But like, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, but I'm just working on like keeping my calories like clean calories. So I do like potatoes and rice instead of like French fries, which I always really want French fries. But like on a tournament day, because of the way that I eat in the morning before a tournament, like after the tournament, we're getting burgers and fries. I'm eating like 3 burgers. I'm not. My stomach says we're not eating 3 burgers. My brain says I want 3 burgers.
Yes.
I eat 2 and like a whole thing of fries and like a Dr. Pepper. That's like my reward.
Absolutely. Get after it. Absolutely.
Yeah. But like day to day, I make sure that I reach like 135 to 150 grams of protein. We're keeping within like, I'm not in a calorie, I'm in a calorie surplus right now, trying to gain weight. Because eventually I want to cross game more into Boohurt and SCA stuff, which I've been doing some practices for. They're really fun, actually. I love putting people on their ass. It's a great time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when you're like learning the techniques and then it clicks and then you're like, oh, bam, and somebody's just on the ground and you're like, that was cool.
That's
like
awesome.
This, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, those are all kind of part of my goals, and obviously eating comes into a lot of that. But yeah.
Saan, let's switch over to you. What's your goals? What are your goals?
Well, The first one, big, like in bold letters. I hear my notes is Warlord. I want to hit Warlord really bad. It's
Oh,
like
yeah.
I can't really explain it. It's like I was told I can't get it early on in my Amp Guard career, and I'm like, okay, bet I'm getting it now. And like
Nothing motivates somebody more.
Now it's
And
spite.
That's
it's
the
that
attitude.
I want to be a Bell Knight as well. So like
Oh, yeah.
I've been working on my Bellagar Squireship a lot. I've been mostly just like focusing on physical training and staying fit and staying active and stuff because I've been in like a pretty busy part of my life right now. So I just moved out of my mom's place. I'm working a full-time job, making a savings account, all that stuff. So like
Oh, yeah.
Hell
a
yeah.
lot of my training and a lot of my Amped Guard Bellagar time is getting put on the side burner for real life right now, but that's okay.
Hey, that's totally okay. Sometimes you got to do
awesome.
that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Laddie, I'm going to rewind real quick. You have a question from the chat. What's the best burger in Austin?
Okay, I'm gonna say my favorite is P. Terry's. Like, it's a chain. It's mostly in South Texas area. I really only see it in Austin. I don't know where else it is. I love P. Terry's burgers. But if we're at a tournament and I'm going somewhere for a burger, it's whatever the closest diner is.
Okay.
I mean,
Respect.
whatever they've got back there.
Give me something, please.
Give me something.
Saan, what's the best burger in Indy or in Terre Haute?
There's not really a lot of like small mom and pop burger places. If there are, I haven't eaten at them. So like my favorite is to just get like double, triple steak burger from Steak and Shake and call it a day.
That's not a bad answer. Like Steak and Shake puts out some good food.
Just put some cheese, ketchup, and mayo on it. I'm happy.
Oh yeah. You
Hell
said
yeah.
you're really busy right now. What's your routine? What's your routine when you're not quite so busy adulting? Like what do you do?
So I like to be in the gym 3 times a week. I like to schedule my workouts on A/B splits. Like I have a cardio week and a weight training week. Like let me just look at my notes for a second real quick to give you a rundown. Like on my A week, I'm doing like some running anywhere from 1 to 2 miles, maybe 2.5. And then after I finish the run, I'm doing 100 chops, 100 crosses with each hand on the pedal. Doing some footwork drills, working with the footwork ladder, all that fun stuff. Just kind of changing up what I do each week, each day, I mean.
Makes sense.
And then more running. And then I'm doing like arms, back, core, legs, all that fun stuff on my weight training week, lifting like a power lifter, running like a runner.
Oh yeah, makes sense.
Hell yeah.
Makes sense. All right. So let's really dive into this topic. As up and coming fighters. Now these are fighters that, Saan, in your case, you were really young when you started. You've been around for a while, but you've decided to get serious about fighting post-COVID. Mad Laddie, you're both new to the game and serious about fighting from the jump. What is your take and opinion on fighting culture? And you can separate it out into, amped, dag, bell if you want. You can give overall, whatever you want to do. Mad Laddie, we're going to start with you again.
All right. Well, I'd say fighting culture down here is pretty rough and tumble, especially when you're talking about dag bell kind of culture. I know I go north and sometimes people are like, you guys hit really hard. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, it's like what is it called when you have to like measure it to like everybody else? I don't know. So it's a little bit more rough and tumble down here.
Okay. Like the curve, like on
Calibrate.
Calibrate, got it.
I gotta calibrate to like
Mhm.
not hit people as hard because I'm so used to like having to swing for the fences sometimes and dag bell, trying to like just, and even like I know this doesn't happen as much up north just from like my experiences, but like I don't have to like hold the block as strong
Mhm.
for like power chops up north. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of people down here that like really stick to like, I just chop really, really, really hard, and this is how I break through all of your barriers. And I'm like, okay, cool. So it's definitely like, it's very different, I think, in that kind of sense of what I've like experienced. So I feel like the fighting culture down here is very like, the dag bell side of it is not really like, it hasn't expanded since dag went under, basically. So we don't really have a strong bell culture. But but you still have a lot of the rough and tumble, and like people are like slowly migrating into Bell, but we still have like Dag day battles and Bell day battles, and it kind of goes back and forth. And then the Amp Guard culture of what I've experienced is a lot of like, I'm gonna say it's very stick jockey culture, even in battle games, even in tournaments, both. It's very stick jockey. I understand why people say the CK can have toxic tournament culture. I get it. I love it. Personally, I thrive. But I understand. But that's how I would kind of like describe our culture here. It's very like rough and tumble, very like, I almost want to say it's like a little bit behind the curve and how people have like changed the fighting culture up north. It's very much kind of, we're slow, but we're progressing. We're just slower. We're like walking a 15-minute mile and you guys are going at like a 10-minute mile pace. Like we're just so far behind.
That's fair.
But in a good way. I appreciate the fighting culture down here. It's just very, very different when you travel a lot.
Outside of the drama and stuff, I've always appreciated the CK culture as well, and that's probably because my international experience in terms of Amp Guard has always been like just going down to Spring War for like, in the mid 2000s. So I definitely was like dipped into it pretty hard. But, how would you describe the differences between, from your perspective, Amp Guard and Dag Bell culture down south?
So we have a lot of cross gaming.
Okay.
Because there's not, at least in my opinion, I see a lot of cross gaming. There's not a lot of like big Amp Guard events here, at least like in Texas. We have Spring War, and that's our big one. And then you have like the normal things like Qualls, Weapon Master, in rain, mid rain, and that's kind of like you'll get that throughout the year. The closest one after that is Siege or Clan, which it's not called Clan anymore. It's called something else.
Gathering of the Crowns, I think.
That one. And those are the next closest ones. And Gathering of the Crowns or Kingdoms or whatever that one's called is 12 hours away from us. And Siege is 7 hours.
Jeez.
Yeah. So those are the closest like inter-kingdom events that I know of.
Wild.
Yeah. So I honestly, the people that like to fight a lot down here definitely tend to cross game because you get more. You get day battles, you get a whole bunch of different things that go along with that. There's not really any big Bell Dag events down here, although we do have Pangea. Kind of bare bones. I love Pangea. It's pretty bare bones for event wise. It's a great time. It's fucking cold though. January, unpredictable in Texas. Let me tell you,
that's fair.
Unpredictable.
That's crazy.
But yeah, those are like the events, and they both happen in like between January and March, and everything else is 6 hours away at least.
What's been your experiences as far as like how an upcoming fighter is treated, or like what's that experience been like?
There's a lot of different feelings on that, like
and you could bring gender into it as well if you want.
Yeah, so it's kind of different. I don't know how much of it is gender based and how much of it isn't gender based, but it's like getting into it, there's like a bell curve, I think, or like not a bell curve, but like there's a curve of like when you're getting really good at fighting and you have like a breakthrough, and then you fight people that you haven't fought in a while, and they're like, they don't take things because they're like, there's no way you're that good yet, and you're like, but did you get hit? So there's definitely like that kind of version of like up and coming, and like I'd say that's a very like game, not game specific kind of experience.
Yeah.
And then there's also like the experience of like, oh, I'm in an Amp Guard tournament. I have like one leg up and the other leg down, and I have my dead leg on the ground, and my dead leg gets hit twice, and I'm like, cool, have to think for a second, dead, not dead, what are the rules here? Like that's the one that's the most common. Or like somebody will call me dead and it'll be like a kingdom kind of region thing of how they like interpret legging rules, and then you're like, I don't think that's it, this is how the rules of play say it is, and they'll go, oh, but you cross games, are you sure that's in the right rules of play? And you're like, yeah, I am actually. But I'm working on it, not starting arguments with people in tournaments. Really bad at it. This is an in progress thing, because I'm like, I am right, and I know I am right, and I want to start a fight, and I'm not there yet.
That's part of the come up is, picking your battles. That's, that's part of it, I think.
Yeah, when we get to 8 and 9, I'm fighting. Like,
Just keep your personal book of war on you. That's what I always I used to have a little laminated one, and it was on a ring, and then when people would be like, these are the rules, I'd be like,
nope.
These are the
Contreras.
rules.
nope.
I'm gonna do
It was
it
usually in check, but
when
yeah.
I get into battle gaming for amp guard stuff. I'm gonna get one of those like quarterback things
Yep.
and put it here, so that when somebody's like, "This affects you," I can be like, "No, it doesn't."
Even lately at my home park, we've been using like the little like lighter leashes with like index cards on a carabiner clip.
Oh,
There
that
you
makes
go.
sense too.
Yeah.
I like that.
Just when you want to argue, it's always good to just be like, here's the
pop it out.
rule. Yeah.
Saan,
Yes.
how's culture your ways? Talk to
So-
me about it.
It's honestly culture. I feel like at least here in my part of the Midwest and Terre Haute on the Indiana side, it's really its own beast. Because like 15 minutes that way, I have Dagger here. 15 minutes that way, I have Bell amped, and like they do a lot of like collaboration between each other. So like it doesn't really feel like I'm playing a different game when I go to any of these places. It just feels like fighting. Like I'll go to Dragonspire, I'll fight Var, I'll fight Merrick, I'll fight all the knights over at Dragonspire, and then I'll go fight at Dunland and fight all the people from Dunland, and they fight very differently, but it's just as intense of a fight over at Dunland as it is Dragonspire. Like trying to figure out how I can describe that.
Primrose says, "Talk good about us, bitch."
Hey, that's not bad stuff. You guys are great.
I took a turn at Dunland. I visited not that long ago, and there were some good fights. That was a lot of fun.
But yeah, it's like everyone really works together here in my part of Indiana to kind of like get a cohesive like opinion on wax going, like in a cohesive like I don't know, whack culture going to an extent. It's like it's great because I'm also like really close to Geddon and Fest. So my Belagarth, like when I go to Belagarth events, it feels like I'm just right at home as well. So
Makes sense. Oh yeah, yeah, because you're right there, and like
Yeah.
one can kind of consider Ockfest and Geddon kind of like the somewhat of like the main events of Belgarth. Does that seem right? That and Winter
I would
War.
argue.
Armageddon is the main event of Belgarth, and Ockfest is the longest running other event of Belgarth. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. And then Winter
I think
War
it's
is
also
like
the other biggest one.
Winter War is like important.
I feel like has become well, now especially that so many realms have switched to Belgarth from Dag in that area too. I think that Winter War would be like it's kind of iconic. I can't believe I've actually never been, but that and like Battle for the Ring are the ones that I think of as like the four really big ones. And I don't even think Battle for the Ring is that big anymore, but Battle for the Ring is like was the biggest West Coast one for a while. Winter War would be the biggest East Coast one, and then Armageddon and Oktoberfest are definitely the biggest Midwest ones.
Yeah.
So like Saan, what are your well, and Bifter, they're saying Cord is saying Bifter too, but it sounds like I don't know. And Bifter is I've only heard great things about Bifter, and but so Son, what would your experience be for, well, I guess I would ask this. What's the differences in your local area between Amtgard and Dag Bell culture that you've kind of noticed?
So that's kind of like what I was touching on. It's like we don't really have much of a difference, really. A lot of the people that play Amtgard at my area are the same people playing Dag Bell.
Yeah,
So it's like Dag Bell, but now there's magic, but there's also different hit rules and different like limb rules.
makes
So
sense.
very slight differences there. And at least in the Rising Winds, I feel like fighting in the Rising Winds is a very technical fight. You have to think about how you're throwing your shots, where you're throwing your shots, and all the angles that open up when you throw that shot.
Mhm.
And I feel like in other areas and other kingdoms, it's more on the speed game than it is on the technique game. And I really appreciate that here in the Rising Winds.
Oh yeah, okay. What's your take on? And again, you can bring gender into this if you feel it's applicable. I got there. What's your take on the not new player but the up and coming fighter experience? Getting your grind on, that kind of stuff. How is it? How is that different than or how is that impactful to you? Do you think?
I feel like as a trans woman on the grind, trying to get better and actively striving for Warlord, everyone seems to really have my back. And like having this strong sense of community is like insane motivation. Because like you guys were like helping carry the weight that I can't carry. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to sound like an anime protagonist there, but like still. It's I don't know, but I also feel like at times fighting some of the older fighters,
Mhm.
it's really hard for them to accept that I'm able to beat them now
Mhm.
to an extent. It's like I'm not calling anyone specific out. I'm calling like a behavior that I've noticed out. It's like they look at me because like not because I'm a trans woman or anything, but because I'm a newer trans woman to the competitive fighting scene. They're like, there's no way that this person just like faked and hip wrapped me like that.
Yeah.
That's so.
It's like, but you felt it though, right?
Yeah,
I hate you though, right?
Mad Laddie touched on that earlier, and you said something I think important to the topic, which you said there doesn't seem to be a difference between Amped or Bell. That behavior is kind of the same across both
For real.
games, which that to me doesn't read like necessarily a regional problem. That sounds like a culture problem in a sense, or a people problem. So
Absolutely.
that's
Got the problem as old as the games too. The dust armor.
Yep,
that
the
they
dust
call-
armor. The dust
like,
armor.
That's a new one.
Yeah.
So that's that's something for the veterans listening in. That's something to think about. Like these Mad Laddie practices 4 or 5 fucking times a week. You're gonna get better, and you're gonna get better fast. That's not a slow. You're not gonna get better in a couple years. Like you are actively getting better fast, and some of these old fighters that maybe fight once a month or something, she's coming up, and you got to recognize that these people that you trounced just a few months ago really good now, or somebody that maybe doesn't have that level of dedication but maybe breaks through a plateau or something. Like you don't know what their journey is like. So you should be open-minded to take your shots anyway, but it's an additional context here, to
Fight everybody the same.
Exactly.
Take all your shots the same. Fight everybody the same. I mean, there's obviously little differences, but when it comes down to it, it's baseline.
I mean, I've always lived by like take light, hit hard, and that doesn't change depending on who you're fighting.
Yep.
What? Actually, this is a great segue into our next agenda item. What challenges do you face? Saan, I'm going to start with you this time. What challenges as an up-and-coming fighter, as a woman, as a trans woman, however you want to look at it, what challenges are you facing right now?
So there's some like interesting challenges because like with estrogen, I find it like a lot harder to like manage my emotions than it has before. So it's really hard to keep myself completely emotionally engaged to the fight that's happening, and it's really hard for me to not just want to like throw my hands up and walk away sometimes. And like There goes my train of thought somewhere.
Well, you were saying that estrogen being on estrogen now is a challenge for you fighting wise because your emotions are kind of
Hmm
running amok.
But honestly, I kind of think like my biggest challenge is like finding the time to travel, to go to different tournaments, to go to different events, because I work a full-time retail job, and that's really hard to get time off for, especially when I'm like 6 months into the job. So,
That's
other than
go ahead. Sorry.
no, you're fine. I was just gonna ramble.
That's something to think about, because like Horace, you're in your 30s, right? Your mid 30s, and like
Yep.
I'm in my mid 40s. Oh God. But it's like, but how old are you guys? If you don't mind me asking, Laddie and Saan, how old are you?
I'm 22.
Oh, I'm older. I'm 24. This has never happened to me. I'm always the young one. In one case, I'm older.
I'm always the youngest one at the party, so it's okay.
So now,
just you wait.
Hold on. I've been the youngest for like a year. It feels pretty good, actually.
I was the youngest once. Just throwing it out there.
All right. I'm about to hit my mid-20s in like 6 months. So just not letting me live it down because he's already in his 30s.
I'm looking forward to those lower insurance prices.
Facts.
They're
But
pretty nice.
but that being said, like if the tech crash didn't completely F me right now, I usually have a steady career job as somebody in the 40s. Horace has a steady career job as somebody in the 40s. It's like that's something to think about with younger people who are on the come up. Like at the same time that they're on the come up, usually you don't have that career job necessarily established yet or something like that. So like, it does help as far as like, having stability and weekends free and those kinds of things. That's something to think about with the come up is like also people are getting their, just like Saan said, she's having to adult a lot, and that takes time out of your fighting schedule. And when you're younger and you have to do these things and make sacrifices for jobs and careers and stuff like that, it's definitely going to impact your practice schedule.
Yeah, like before the double move, moving from my mom's place to the apartment to here in Riley with Sothoth, Paul, it's just been, I went from fighting 3-4 times a week to fighting 3 times a week to fighting twice a week, which that's what I'm doing right now. I'm exercising 3 times a week, fighting twice a week. And it kind of upsets me because I want to fight more and I just can't because I'm working.
That sucks.
Sometimes you got to do it.
Mm-hmm.
What?
It'll,
Go ahead.
Nothing ever stays the same though. Like there'll be times when you get to fight more. There'll be times when you don't get to fight at all. So just enjoy what you can do because you don't know what tomorrow is going to bring.
I've been saving every hour of PTO I've been getting, and I'm just going to use all of it next year to go to as many events and tournaments as I can.
Hell yeah! Let me know where you're gonna go because I'll meet you there because I'm traveling next year.
I'm gonna be hitting up Inroads, Tal'Dagor, Rising Winds, just any amped card duchy that has this thing where I can finally get my 7th. So
you want to go to Known World War?
Yes,
celebrate my
I
birthday
do.
with me. It'll be my birthday.
Yes, sounds like a great time. I'm in.
Yeah.
I personally quit going to Known World War because there were like 2 years in a row where I'm like, ticks. I've got ticks, and I'm so scared of ticks. And like that's a bit, so I don't go anymore.
I also hate ticks. Also, my garb is white, and it always gets covered in ticks. Any place that has ticks.
Hold on.
That's why my garb is black.
Decisions were made here.
That's fair. Saan, what other challenges do you face as an up and coming fighter?
Mostly it's like outside of like finding the time and actually sticking to routines. It's really hard to establish a routine whenever you're moving houses a lot. But now that I've been here in Riley, I feel like I got a steady routine going. I got good fights that I'm finding. But a challenge that I still think that I'm finding is like and this is completely on me, I never record my fights. And like I just wish that like it was easier to record fights.
Yeah. Makes sense.
I will personally send you a tripod
Mhm.
I have
Okay.
so many extras. I accidentally bought them all when they were like $5 on Amazon.
Hell yeah.
Serge had this big goal that he was going to start recording all the tournaments. And I was like, dope. We've never done it, not once, since I ordered all these tripods. So please get
Wild.
them out of my house.
If you have full-size tripods, I may be up for one or two of them. I've got all these like
Yeah.
mini phone tripods, and I'm like, give me a
They're full.
full-size tripod.
They're full-size tripods that hold your phone on them.
What's the difference between a mini tripod and a full-size
Oh.
tripod?
It
Well-
extends.
Well,
It
I
goes
So a full-size
tall.
tripod extends or a mini one extends?
A full size.
I would
Okay.
personally still call, if they hold phones, I'd still call them mini tripods. I was hoping you had like
Oh, okay.
like the musician tripod, like the
Like
big.
hold up a DSLR.
Oh no.
Yeah. I was like, oh, if you have those, I'll take all of them.
I have access to them though, and I know somebody that's about to sell a whole bunch, so I'll let you know.
We'll be in touch.
Yeah.
We'll be in touch. Tell us about your challenges, Mad Laddie.
I'm gonna point out an obvious one here. I am short, and there are not a lot of short fighters at a super high level that fight and look similar to the way that I do. Male, female, body type, whatever. I usually have less than 5 inches on most people that are fighting. So that's like been my biggest struggle, is taking the fights that I see and the things that people do and switching them and changing and taking little bits of them to work as a shorter fighter. Because a lot of the things that you see people do, I'm like, oh yeah, that's really cool. And then I try and do it, and I'm like, this is a tall person thing. This does not work for me. Like, I cannot just underscoop somebody's forearm like that. I would have to reach so much. So that's like probably one of my biggest challenges right now, is like figuring out what works and what doesn't work as a shorter fighter. I mean, there's a lot of things too, being like on the come up and like trying to balance my hormones with tournaments. Rough. Like fighting during the worst part of my hormone cycle, insane. And so it's
Really?
like a lot of raising my baseline to where even when I'm on my shark week, I can still fight better than other people in the tournament, because that's what I'm looking for, to like get those brackets and get further on and get my points, is fighting better and staying in it and getting in the zone and like really making sure that like even when I'm on shark week, I can still
Mhm.
execute.
It like affects your focus when you're fighting.
Super.
Okay.
Yeah, it like is very exhausting. I'm in a lot of pain. And this is like, I've balanced all my hormones and everything for years. Like,
Mhm.
so I'd say like honestly, all of my stuff is pretty regular, and it's probably the most regular it's ever gonna be.
Mhm.
And it's still a constant battle for me to be like, all
Yeah.
right, I'm really good. I fight really good for 3 weeks, and then I like dip. And so I like
Mhm.
make sure, especially in my shark week, that I'm fighting all week long. Doesn't matter how shit I feel, because that's my baseline, and that's what I'm working on raising every month, is where's this baseline going. So and then filming
on
all
one
those
hand,
fights.
I'm like, I never thought about that, like tournament schedule being impacted by, that kind of thing. On the other hand,
Mhm.
I empathize a lot, because I'm like in a very similar vein. I have Crohn's disease and I have flare-ups, and if I'm flaring up and I'm supposed to be in a tournament or an event, I'm just like, why am I even fucking here? Like, what's the point?
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
I am shit.
And then really
I get
pushing
that.
through that, like mentally on that in that time, and like really pushing yourself. And it's so much mentals to be like, no, I can still hit that. Nothing has changed other than my body has decided to hate me right now, and that's fine. We can push through this. I don't care that my body hates me right now. Like, so those are like probably my two like biggest struggles that I would say, is just like constantly trying to like adapt my fighting style to actually work for someone who is short, which is so hard to get footage on. And then really working on like the hormone balance of like, when do I hit tournaments, to like, and how do I raise my baseline to where even when I'm in a shit spot, I'm still fighting better.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
How can so this is something this is like the heart of this episode, I think, at least for me, is because how can veterans support you guys? Like what can people that have been doing this for a while, we've climbed some of our mountains, how can we better support you? Laddie, we're going to start with you again.
I've got a comment, and it's not going to be the nicest comment. But if you know that these people have people that are already supporting them and already showing them the ropes on how to fight, ask before you open your mouth.
Okay. Okay.
The amount of times somebody has pulled me out of a fight to be like, let me show you how to do this shot. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. I don't need you to tell me that. In nicer words, I use my good girl voice. But the amount of times that I've had to be like, I don't need you to tell me that. Or like, somebody's been like, this is how you throw a chop. And I've been like, Lil Spicy's my boyfriend.
So
throw that out there.
interesting, because as soon as you said that, Saan started nodding her head yes, like yes, absolutely. So this is Saan, this is something that happens on your side of things as well.
The amount of times that I've been explained how to throw a proper cross and when to do it is insane.
Really? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So
Bro,
there's
you know how many...
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, you know how many times I've landed a spin shot in a tournament perfectly, and then somebody in practice the other day goes, "Let me show you how to throw a spin shot." Are you kidding me?
I've been on my end. I've been trying to ask people, because when I first got my warlord, I was like, all right, I'm gonna teach everybody. That's the plan. And then I was like, somebody I think gave me feedback is like, you should probably ask. And I'm like, okay. I'm gonna start asking. So I've been starting to ask. And so is that so? Like, if somebody's like, hey, can I show you something? Are you open to feedback? What's the right way to approach it? I should ask, I guess.
I think, are you open to feedback? Or, hey, I saw something that, maybe isn't clicking in that one instance for you. Are you cool if we walk over it real quick? Or like something around those lines, I find way nicer than someone being like, your spin shot wasn't very fast, so let me show you how to do it. And then they go, I don't throw spin shots that often.
I'm just like... I really like it when people want to just talk about fights. Like, after like a turn, people come up to me and is like, hey, Saan, I really enjoyed watching you fight, or I really enjoyed fighting you. Can we talk about our fights? That means the world to me.
Okay.
I love that shit. I love talking. I'm really hypercritical about myself when I'm fighting. So, like, even while we're talking about fights, if you could tell me, like, what you saw didn't work, what you saw did work, that's a big important one. Because I'm a little anxious ball of anxiety, and I will be mean to myself, so be nice to me, please. Like, tell me what I'm doing good. I like to hear that stuff.
So we've got ask to give feedback. We've got, make sure you give the good too, sandwich method if needed. Excuse me.
I think the good is always great to tack on there too, whether or not it's sandwich method or not, because there's a lot of things that, like, as an up-and-comer you're working on. And if somebody can, like, see in that instance, oh, you threw this chop into this fake and kept your block there the whole time in order to throw this shot, that was really sick. Or, like, that was pretty sexy. I like those comments.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. What kind of feedback, when you do get feedback, do you like? Because I've noticed I have also been the person who just, like, says stuff to people. I don't think I've ever said it so rude as, this is how you throw a spin shot, and then I don't know how to throw a spin shot. But like, I can see it on their faces. I'm like, this is not helpful. So I always just ask now, like, do you, like, especially if somebody comes up, wants to spar me, and then afterwards I'm like, do you want feedback? And like, usually people do, but sometimes people are like, no, and then they just leave, and I'm like, cool. But like, I always struggle, like, what do I tell people? Because like, I could talk about things forever, and I don't know what's always going to be.
I'm really wanting to work on footwork, and I'm wanting to work on exiting and engagement. And like, if we can fight, and like, if you want to pay attention to stuff like that, Lion, I did in our spars, and I feel like that was fundamental in my growth.
I like that a lot, actually. I don't do a very good job at, like, knowing what I'm working on at the time, like, or telling people. I usually know what I'm working. I don't really, like, tell people what I'm working on that day. But I typically, like, fight, and then I'll call out things that I did wrong in that
Okay.
fight. Like if I like hit and then lean and I get like fucking punished for it, I'm like, oh yeah, I shouldn't have leaned there.
Yeah, yeah.
Like or like I chop here and forget to put my arm up and I'll be like, oh, I need to use my off arm more.
Mhm.
So I like typically call myself out a lot on the things that I'm doing, but if you see something and you're like, hey, I saw something that was kind of funky,
Mhm.
do you want to talk about it? And if I'm like in the headspace for it, I'll be like, oh yeah, tell me what you saw.
Yeah, yeah. So like,
Um,
especially if you're fighting somebody, like stuff that they feel like they're getting you with is probably a good thing to talk about.
Yeah. And sometimes they're like, I'm working on a different kind of style of single, and people will hit me with the same thing like 3 or 4 times. And I'm like, yeah, okay, this didn't work. This block didn't work.
Yeah.
This is not where that goes. But I don't want you to be like, I hit you with the same 3 shot.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, I got it. Like,
I know what you mean. I have the same kind of like grind my head into the stone like
Yeah.
thing. I'm like, and they're like, I just keep killing you with this. I'm like, I know, I'm trying to do it so you don't like, but
I'm trying
it's
to
not
figure out
working.
where it goes in space.
Yeah.
I like to. Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, go for it.
I like to be told like very little things too. Like if my legs are too close together or if my guard's too high. Like I would really appreciate it if people like Saan, guard high, or Saan, widen your stance, stuff like that, and like
Oh.
stop
That's
leaning
high.
and just like
If you're too far
yeah, yeah.
the other one. Not
Yeah.
too much. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
I hate it
I
when
find-
people do that to me.
Really? Okay.
I like it. See, I find a lot of people that are taller than me. I'm only 5'4", so like my guard tends to like go from like my chest down like from my elbow at my waist and my wrist like closer to my shoulder. It goes from that to like my elbow kind of raising up closer to where my shoulder goes because I'm used to fighting people that are like taller than me.
I've been thinking about this. I'm like, this is, because it's interesting. It was interesting to hear the first time I heard it, where people were like, hey, not everybody wants your advice. And then hearing that that's like the #1 go-to problems for you guys. I'm like, why is this surprising to me? Thinking about it is like, I came up in a time, especially like the dark ages of Amp-Guard, really, where like nobody shared shit. Like if somebody was good, they were just good, and fuck you, and they were better than you, and they're not going to tell you how to get better. People would do things like go ahead, Horus.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I always hear unasked for advice is criticism, but when people would give me advice, like in old school Numenor, it just was criticism. Like they were like, you suck, but they would tell you how you sucked so that hopefully you would learn. But it was on you to figure that out. Like,
and that was like, I remember there was an encounter I had with an unnamed person who's now banned, who was really good.
Yeah.
And he we lined up on the ditch, he slayed me. Lined up on the ditch, he slayed me. Happened rinse ad nauseum. And as he's walking by, he's like, wow, you're really fucking bad. And then this was in a spring war also.
Yeah.
That's just how Amp-Guard, that's how Amp-Guard
Blush.
was. Like that's just what it was. That wasn't, I didn't even hurt my feelings. I was like, I know, and then
I take my reaction back. You said it happened at Spring War.
yeah. And so then next round, I get killed, and he's like, how many fucking times am I going to kill you with this same shot? Walks off. So then next round happens again. I was like,
A lot.
oh, okay, tell me what you're doing, please. And he's like, sure, I'd love to help you. And he starts running through exactly what he's doing. And then he's like, now don't fucking die, do it again. And then walks off, But I think that like illustrates, like, that was the mentality, at least of Amp-Guard, in the early mid 10,000 or 2000s, was like, if you were bad, that's fuck you. That was what people thought. And people would develop shots and skill sets, and they'd use it on you once if you were a threat. And if it worked, they'd never do it again until it was tournament time. And then they'd have this little secret weapon to pull out. So, because it wasn't about getting better. It wasn't about increasing anyone's skill level. It was about winning, and that's it. So I think coming from that environment, where, and I think other, people that have been fighting as long as I have came from that same environment. And so I'm wondering if that, people were like, I'm not going to be like Dad, and I'm going to, and I'm like sitting there like people are just offering advice and be like, here, let me help you, blah 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 blah. And at this point, there's so much advice given, and there's so many resources that people are like, shut up, like, I got it, and people might not realize that they're kind of being obnoxious or something. That's something for veterans to think about, that not only are you not trying to be like dad, but so is everyone else, and the culture has changed, and so we've adapted once, we have to adapt again.
Yeah. I will say that like the video footage that's out there is really dense. There's so much video of people
Yeah.
fighting. Like I watch maybe 3 hours of video a day, and I like haven't even scratched the surface. And I've been watching for a year. Like there's still videos that people are like, have you seen this video? And I'm like, I've never even heard of it. Tell me what it is right now. Like, give me the video.
Yeah.
There's so much.
3 hours a day?
Yeah.
Ew,
I have a
that's
really
need to get
boring
my-
job.
fair.
Oh,
I
okay.
need to get my numbers up. Wow. I just fall asleep to MHOG footage. I thought I was bad.
I think everyone needs to get their numbers up. That's a lot.
That's a lot. Man, back in the day, in like 2010, you'd go look for videos and you could watch them all. You'd be like, oh yeah,
That's all
watch
of 'em.
every video.
Yeah.
They're done. Like SKBC videos, you'd rewatch them. Cause like, what up? You could listen to that again. Like you could listen to people talking, but man, yeah, no.
There's a lot of videos.
That's really cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of videos that I watched like last August when I was like
Mhm.
really getting into it that I've like rewatched recently because I actually know what I'm looking at. But
Mhm.
that's what I started in video footage because I was trying to reeve. And so I
Yeah.
was trying to figure out how to reeve while I was also learning how to fight and what actually looks like a shot versus doesn't look like a shot. Because a lot of that like up and coming mindset is like give the reeve the best angle.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I started reeving to understand what the best angle was and like what I'm seeing with people and things of that nature. And so now I like, because of all the video footage I've watched, I
Mhm.
like know better what the better angles are because there are some really shit videos of fighting and I'm like, did somebody not get hit there? And then I'm like, that was just a shit angle. And like if I was reeving, that would be the worst angle for me to watch the fight from.
Yeah.
Because I would absolutely call that person dead. Like,
Yeah.
because I only need like an 80 to 90% confidence level to call you dead. And like
What-
in that frame, I would have called you dead. Like,
What is a good angle to be watching from?
I've found that like it kind of depends on the style.
Okay.
But typically, a very like perpendicular angle to the fight is
Yeah.
the best.
So you like want to be
Um,
watching from the side.
Yeah. Unless you're watching a particular person, but
Mhm.
it's still kind of hard if you're like at one angle or another. Like I'd say like if you're trying to watch one person's hits and say they're like on the right side, you kind of want to be or like on their sword side, you want to be
Yeah.
on their sword side in a little diagonal like up from them
Okay.
so that you can actually see like both shoulders and the hip.
Yeah.
So the most likely spots to get hit, right? I would say that you want to see the sword side hip, but most likely the other reeve can see the sword side or the shield
Yeah.
side hip is what I mean. And that's not a very common shot thrown, at least here.
Mhm.
And if people do throw it, they usually hit leg. It's just you really have to open someone up and you can kind of see it coming no matter what angle you're at
Yeah.
if somebody's opened up that much. But yeah, typically I find that like a very perpendicular angle is kind of the way to watch. If not, if you're just watching one person, to be a little bit upwards of their sword side so that you can kind of see both shoulders
Yeah.
and watch them from that angle.
That's what I do. I try to line up. I tell the other reeve to line up opposite of me, and I line up against their sword side, and I watch one person, and then this reeve watches the other person that way. So I do something kind of similar. But if I'm trying to reeve
Yeah.
a fight by myself, yeah, just definitely like across, try to get eyes.
Perpendicular, yeah. I
Mhm.
find that you have to be careful too how far deep you go because a lot of the camera angles go almost like diagonally directly behind someone, and at that angle, if you're watching the person that's across, it looks like they get hit a lot more because
Mhm.
you're so deep into the angle. So it's really like measuring that diagonal to the perpendicular where you want to be. especially when it comes to things like stabs and things like that. If you can't tell that someone's pulling the stab, a lot of times it looks like it's gonna hit from a deeper angle.
In terms
that makes
of,
sense.
want to return to the agenda question of how can, because you're supporting us now. How can veterans better support you? Any other things that you can think of?
And on a tangent.
No, that's it. Tangents are good.
That was a good
It was a
tangent.
great tangent. And
think-
go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say, I think understanding, like if we go back to the topic that we were talking about, understanding the fighter that you were giving advice to,
Mhm.
because like as we were finding out, Saan likes things pointed out that I am like, do not tell me that. I want to punch you in the throat if you tell me that. Like, I get very aggro about it. Like I'm
Yeah.
like, if somebody's like, your footwork is a little too far apart, I'd be like,
My thighs are sore from banging your mom. That's why.
like, shot coming right up. Like there are things that are like I obviously don't like that Saan likes. So I think it's a lot about knowing your like how someone fights, like seeing them fight kind of maybe multiple times before really like offering advice, or like seeing a thing and being like, are you open to suggestions, or are you open to advice, and then being like, it's about XYZ, and giving them that thing, and they're like, oh, I'm working on that already, or oh, I would love to hear that advice that you have, right? Yeah, I don't know, do you have anything else, Saan, about like different things that veterans can do to better support you? That was my only bullet point.
So the only bullet point I really had for that one was like, be willing to have conversations and open and honest conversations about our fights.
Yeah.
And I'm really anxious, so a lot of the times if we talk on social media about fighting, you may or may not have to say the first word to me.
Okay, so that's an interesting thing to to talk about. And again, I feel like this is a nuanced topic, because you're both women, you're both very pretty, and like but like it's like dudes just coming up to you and just being like coming up to you and be like, hey, I'd love to show you some fighting. Like there can be a level of like, I'm uncomfortable, so like. And then also like somebody might be like, hey, I really admire your fighting and I want to talk to you about it, and they're not hitting on you, but then also maybe nervous that they might come across that way or something. So like, what's a way that maybe people can explore that without making you uncomfortable?
I don't know. I've had people come up to me and do the hitting on me thing, and I'd be like, cool, I'll get a set in with you, and then I just kind of blast them, and it's fine. And I am like, okay, cool. Was that good for you? It was great for me. And then I kind of my go-to phrase. It's terrible.
No, it's perfect. Oh wow!
I need a cigarette after whooping your ass like that.
Oh my god,
that was perfect.
It's like I don't realize that people are trying to hit on me like that, and then Serge will come by later and be like, what just happened there? Because all he saw was like the last two fights, and me walk away and be like, great job, great fights, buddy. Like nothing else about it. And he's like, what happened? And I was like, oh, this guy walked up to me and was like, you want some advice about your fighting? And he goes, you know that guy was hitting on you, right? And I was like, oh, well, I just kicked his ass, so it's fine, I think. I think I shut it down plenty. Like,
well, he might be a sub, so he might be like really interested. Anyway, moving on.
I mean, if he's really interested, I can't help you. I'll just send Serge after him. I'll be like, you can handle that, babe. But so, I've always had my little guard dog, so I don't know.
That makes sense.
He's
yeah,
not little, but
that's fair. Yeah.
You'd recommend having a guard dog.
I like having a guard dog. Yeah, I really appreciate it. I understand it's not an open opportunity for everybody. But even in just the sense that like it's not always your partner, sometimes it's your friends.
Yeah.
Who can just like, even if you can't, they can whoop ass or whatever. Or you go get a set in and they're like, you want some advice? And you go, no. and walk away.
Mhm.
Saan, what's your
Absolutely.
take on that? What's the best way to approach you and not, about fighting and stuff, and just, how should somebody go about that?
So like, if we're talking about like being afraid if people are going to like come across as hitting on me, 9 times out of 10 I won't notice it. It'll go straight over my head. I'm just gonna, if you ask me to fight you, I'm here to fight you. That's it. So
Uh-oh.
Oh no.
She was here to fight us. Maybe not now.
Yeah. That
Well,
was such unfortunate timing. No, back.
and it's is she back?
Yeah.
Okay. Stand by. I got to
Yes.
put her back in. All right. There, we're
I
back.
can hear you.
all right, we're back now.
We're back.
Yeah.
You're back.
Great, because I can't remember what my train of thought was or where I was at.
When somebody hits on you, 9 times out of 10, it
Yes.
just goes over your head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm mostly just gonna like be like, okay, cool, hit, and just like continue fighting. But
Okay.
honestly, like the best way to approach me is to just introduce yourself. Be like, hey, what's up? My name is blah blah blah. What's your name? And just get a conversation going. Ask to fight, and ask to talk about the fights if you want to talk about the fights afterwards. I'm a very mellow person if you're mellow with me. So
Yeah.
Saan, I
yeah,
wanna-
Pippin's correct.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, Son, I want to know if you've ever done this move to anybody that's accidentally, or like whether or not they've hit on you or not. But if you haven't, you should try it sometime. In single, you wiggle the sword and then chop their arm.
I'm gonna try that honestly. See if they're paying attention to my sword or me.
Great time.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna turn it over to chat, or I'm gonna task chat with, if you have questions for Mad Laddie or Saan, ask them now. Go ahead and ask the questions. Horus, do you have any questions or statements for Mad Laddie or Saan? We'll give you.
I do.
Well, I
Not
give you
yet.
some time if you think of one.
I do think that if you are a vet and you have new people, especially like it doesn't matter who they are, if you take them to the event, you got to be their guard dog.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Because people will just be rude and shitty to new people because they're new and they don't know their way around everything, and they don't think that people stand up for them, and people don't know them. So look at the bystander effect. If you've been around for a long time and somebody's rude to you, everyone will go after you. No one is gonna stand for it. But if you're new, people will I don't know that person, and they won't do anything. So watch out for your new people,
I
or
think
just your young people in general who aren't as well known.
Yeah.
I think that also is a task for all of us that says, if you see something, say something. Don't be a bystander if you can. If you can, try to open your mouth if you can. Mabel says that their phased fighting style is murdering Bayward and kissing him, and I think is funny. But every fight's a flirt. That's a philosophy I came up with a long time ago. Is if you just can't vibe and you're not feeling the fight, think of every fight as a flirt, and it makes you happy. It puts you in a better mood, and it changes the dynamic of combat. And then just try it. Something to try.
Yeah. I would say the other thing too is that even though the first one, it sounds like you're going into a place where everybody's a pack of wild dogs, like sword fighting events aren't like that. That's why we keep showing up, right? It's a cool big community. So if you have people who are up and comers, take them to meet people who are cool and have them meet people, because they will meet cool people. You never know. They make fast friends. They make other friends that they meet their other up and comers. And then also, if they're an up and comer and they want to fight good fights, make them fight the good fighters. Don't just throw them to the wolves and make them figure it out. Because if I just have my squire go to an event, even if they're wearing the squire's tabard and everything, and they walk up to someone and they're just like, hey, you want to fight? They might say no. But if I walk up with them and I say, hey, you want to fight my squire? They'll be like, sure. And then it's totally different experience if you vouch for this person being worth your time. Even though it seems like you shouldn't have to do that because you already know, that's just kind of the normal human experience that like if you are introduced through someone, it's going to be a better time. So take that time to like take your new people around, introduce them to people. If you want them to just meet everyone, take them around at night to camps. If you want them to get good fights, take them to the people who are sparring and introduce them.
That's definitely how I met people.
Is the
Just walking
introduction
around.
and
Yeah.
like yeah.
Well, Serge knows so many people, and we went to so many big events, and I would just follow him like a lost puppy for like my first like 6 events with a monster and a bottle of Jaeger, and we would just walk around.
That's the way.
So many people, and I watched him go night ditch for a little while, and like flirt with people by being like sword side hip or shield side shoulder, and watch him hit it on everybody. And I would just be like, all right, okay, I guess this is how you flirt. I don't know. And that was just how I met people, for sure, as I started.
Primrose asks, what do y'all consider a new player? At what point are they no longer new? Mad Laddie, we're going to start with you.
I have opinions on this.
Let's hear it.
That's because I'm still considered a new player. In Amtgard, I have 6 orders, or I like just qualified for my 6th. They're probably going to give it to me on a streak. And then in Belagarth, I'm still considered a very new player. Both the same. Amtgard stops at like, I'd say we stop considering people a new fighter once you hit like 5. If you get all of your new 1 through 5 through like battlefield prowess, right? Then you're fine. You got it. You can swing a stick. You're no longer like a very new player. I think that kind of changes when you start going to events and stuff as a newer fighter, right? You have to like meet people and like really get out there, and you start all over as like a new fighter. All you know how to do is throw a stick. But Belagarth will often say that people under 3 years, under 5 years, still qualify for newbie tournaments. I plan to have my warlord in 3 years. Picking up a stick to warlord in 3 years.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Do it.
I fight enough that I think it's plausible.
It is.
But like
Totally
in Belagarth, would you still call me a new fighter because I'm under 3 years? Like this is where I think that like how we measure fighting is very different, and this is maybe one of the things that's very different about cross gaming, or the different games, not cross gaming in general, but the different games is like as Amtgard, if I have 10, I'm obviously not a new player, right? But like in Bell, I'm still under 3 years. I can still fight in the newbie tournament. Am I going to? We'll see.
Saan, what's a new player to you?
See, I really feel like a new player is really tied to the both the amount of time and orders, like Maddie was saying. It's like with Amtgard, I feel like you can be considered a new player until 5, just as Maddie said, but I feel like you're not considered like Kingdom competitive until 7. I feel like once you get your 7th, that's when the people that are going to these Kingdom tournaments start to really like, okay, lock in, I gotta take it seriously against this person, instead of just like brain 75% activity, block strike, throw a wrap. With Belagarth, I feel like that's a tough one. I really feel like by the end of your 2nd year, you're coming out of that like new player like shell. Like you have, by that time, you should have like a plan of what you want to do with the game. You should have people. You should like have in mind if you're going to be a squire or not, if you're going to join a unit or a company, and by that point, you should have like a sense of identity with yourself in the game. So I feel like after 2 years, you're well established, and you're not a new Bellagram anymore. You're a Bellagram.
Horus, what do you think? What's a new player to you? And don't let them influence your opinion. What was your answer before they said anything?
Oh, I can't really, because I don't really ever fight Amtgard. So like that, this is actually very like interesting for me. In Belagarth, I feel like it depends on exposure, like how much you see everyone. Like there are some people who I forget that they're like new fighters because they're at every event and they have been for like a year plus, and like they might only have been fighting for 2 years. But I don't really consider somebody who fights well, even if they fight well and they're at every event. If you've been to like 20 events, even if you're not even 2 years, are you really a new fighter? Like to me, that's like you've been to as many events as someone else who did it for 4. So I think that in general, though, when you're in your own park, you're in your own realm. 2 years is about when you start hitting vet. Like to me, after you've completed your second year, you're coming back for your third year. Now you're really a veteran. You should know all the culture. You should know the norms. You shouldn't be like breaking them or doing weird things. When you go to a camping events, I should be able to trust you to not get lost or die, anything like that. Like I'm not looking after you all the time, making sure you're alive. You probably know people too. I think that new fighter can extend into like 4 years. It's also gotten weird because the COVID was like long and nobody fought during it. So a lot of people are like, I'm a new fighter. I've been fighting for 4 or 5 years. And I'm like, what? Like, that's not a new fighter. 4 or 5 years, you're like a veteran. At 4 years, I was like beating 95% of the field. And like that last 5%, if like long time and like it just keeps going up the skill level. But like 4 years was I feel like if anybody grinds for 4 years, you're gonna be fighting near the top. But so like 2 years to me is when you're like really a vet. But you can even make it faster, and like it really just depends on how much exposure you have. But again, if I've known you've been fighting for 2 years, I'm not gonna call you a new person. When they said that 3 years was the new fighter cutoff, I was like, what? Like 3 years is not a new person. I disagree, but I'm not running the tournament. That's not my prerogative.
It's okay. I'm about to expose the hell out of it. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
I promise.
I was like, man, you could have some people showing up who are just under that 3-year cutoff, and they'd be like insane. They'd crush people. Like that's not really a noob tournament.
There's also the cross gaming factor of like it might be somebody's first Bell event, but they'll fucking beat everybody in that whole thing, you know.
I straight up like, even if you've never done Bell, if you've done Amp Guard for like maybe 2 years, maybe depending on like how much fighting you've done, but like if you've done like Amp Guard for 5 years or whatever, and you've like won a tournament or whatever, and then you come to Belgarth and you're like, I'm a new fighter. This is my first Bell event. You're not a fucking new fighter.
Come on, do it for the meme.
Yeah. I know people. There's man, Slagar loved showing up to realms and being like, I've never done this before, in his jeans, and like go out there and pretend like he's brand new. And other people can get away with this. They do it all the time. I never got it. I finally this year went to C2E2. I got my 2 swords. I held them like this. I pretended I was a new fighter. I walked up. They were like, have you done this before? I'm like, how do you know? Like, I'm trying to be as flirty as possible, and it's just like, so,
I totally did it at a convention demo one time.
Yeah,
because I was there playing Pathfinder, and I saw an Amp Guard demo, so I rolled in and I'm like, what is this? You know, and we went through the whole routine of it. And then he's like showing me shots. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. Somebody knew me that was there, and they're just sitting there dying, laughing. And then they said, lay on. And I was like, wham, 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 wham. And just, you know, they were like, okay.
Yeah.
So
good.
So
my favorite.
Go ahead.
When people let you go along with it. Like when people don't rat you out for it. That's my favorite.
Yep. Yeah. Hell yeah. My take on this. So I think, personally, I think there's a difference between a new fighter and a newbie. A newbie, I would agree, like 2 years and under, you know, depending upon, you know, maybe even 1 year or under if they've been hitting it a lot. I found it very interesting that both Mad Laddie and Saan qualified as essentially what they've achieved more than time in, you know, with time in being like a factor to it. But I found that interesting because it makes sense that you could skill out of being a new fighter in a sense.
Yeah, like Mad Laddie did what it took me 8 years to do in how long?
1 year.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
Hell yeah. So,
but I've also had people tell me I'm not going to be competitive until I've been like in the game for 2+ years, and I'm like, that's just an outdated form of thinking to me.
If you're living it, if you're fighting 5 times a week, if you're hitting the gym, if you're watching videos, those are years that you're compressing into a small amount of time.
Mhm.
You know.
It also depends on where you're fighting too. Like
Yeah.
some people don't have access to fight a lot of good fighters, and so it's just going to be harder. You're going to have to go to events, and it's going to take longer. And then there's some people who are fighting, you know, their their sparring partner is a warlord, and
Yeah.
like, yeah, like
All of
you're
mine.
yes, anybody who's like, oh, I'm here for a year and my sparring partner is Spicy. My sparring partner is Glenn. I'm like, okay, so you're not actually going to be bad. You're not going to be like a 1-year fighter. Like there might be like gaps where like this person doesn't abuse this thing against you, but like it's not.
Yeah.
It's just not the same. I remember Himmel's brother Shroud. He came out and it was like his first year or whatever, and he fought like he had been fighting for 3 or 4 years, and he was left-handed, so it was just like he was obliterating people.
They're smarter than everybody
Yeah.
else. We learned that last week.
They fight all the right-handed persons.
He is.
So they're like,
Oh, yeah.
okay, cool, just get smoked. All I have to learn is like 4 shots,
Yeah.
all on the same side. 2 of them are fakes. I throw the same 2 shots.
It's true.
So I actually have a grumpy old person view on what a new fighter is. I used to say anyone after 2016 was still a new fighter. Now I'm saying anyone post-COVID is a new fighter. And I don't mean that like, oh, you're a new fighter. Somebody can be absolutely incredible, and there's definitely some warlords that have, you know, done that work since COVID. I think I think there's at least one that started around COVID or post-COVID.
Whoa.
You know, possible. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe not.
I
I don't
can't
know.
think of them off my head. I think you're right, but I don't know who it would be.
Is it Magni? Did Magni start post-COVID? I don't remember.
Magni and Polaris?
I think so.
Or Magni?
Not Magnus.
Magni.
Yeah.
Oh, I made Magni's hood.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He started. Maybe not. No, because I remember seeing Magni to keep. Anyway, point being is like, to me when I say new fighter, like I'm not thinking in terms of skill level. I'm thinking in terms of like some of the weird shit that I saw, you know, in the mid 2000s. Were y'all around for that? Okay, no. Some of the weird, you know, or yes.
Oh, I guess not mid 2000s.
Or like mid 2010s, you know, did you see that? Well, then what about like the, you know, around 2010? Did you see that weird shit? You know, it's like it helps me gauge what level of culture immersion that you've had, you know. So that's where I think I use the term.
Did you dodge and or not be able to dodge a kilt flash from Fergus? Like that's a thing.
Why
that would no longer be a thing. But
why the fuck do
like,
I have the same story but with a different name?
Because it was a thing.
What? Did you dodge a kilt lifting from Liam and see that he's pierced?
That'll date scar.
God.
I dodged it. We're good.
That would be a COC3 now?
Yes.
You'd absolutely be a propagated ban.
Yes.
Yeah.
There was so many of those back then.
Oh, yeah.
Not surprised.
Yeah. But like it was a different time because like Fergus is a person that I don't think would continue to do that if he was going to get banned for it. So yeah.
They do it for the funny joke, not
Yeah,
for
exactly.
the actually like scarring people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
it was fun for them because people went and then laughed. You know,
Yeah.
like, if they didn't laugh, they wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
Right.
Last agenda question, or maybe agenda statement. Back when a man could humiliate himself with dignity.
That's good. That's good.
Send it.
You
That's
still
the
can. You just gotta
tagline.
do it different.
When we talk about the old days, back when a man could humiliate himself with dignity. So,
You just gotta do it in private camp with everyone consenting now.
yes.
Yeah.
We, you know, I've been thinking about putting together a good old days show, and you know, like separate from a history show, but just like let's talk about the good old days. And then I'm like, every time I think of it, I'm like, no. we should not. We should not do that. Last topic here. Give a shout out to your supporters. who supports you? Let's start with Saan. Who are your supporters? How do they support you? Shout them out.
I've got a long list, so buckle up.
Do it.
So mostly it's my belt line. My belt line is my biggest supporters. We've got Warlord Sir Ferrix, took me up as their latest squire. Earlier this year, we have Maz, my squire brother, who was my early on in my like competitive fighting lock-in grind mode, was my daily sparring partner, showed me everything, introduced me to so many people. Because of Eli, I met people like Karai, Fumbles, all those amazing fighters that I get to like be homies with now. And then we have people like all the knights and the homies down at Dragonspire, Sir Var, Sir Quentin, Sir Merrick, Sir Damien. They all they have such a good like wealth of knowledge about the game and such like rich experiences that like I can just rely on them and ask them any question about any challenge that I'm facing, and they'd be willing to give me like some advice, give me some things I should do and things I shouldn't do. And that's both with fighting and like leadership stuff.
Hell yeah.
And obviously my roommate Sothoth giving me a place to live.
Hell yeah. That helps.
100%.
Any other shout outs you got?
All of Dunlin, Whoosh, Drayden, Mongo, Primrose, Servana.
Yeah. Mad Laddie, how about you? Who do you want to shout out?
I'm gonna shout out two really big people for myself first, and those people are gonna be Ender and Lil Spicy. Ender is an up and coming warlord, like just qualified for warlord in the CK.
Oh,
Yeah, hell yeah, right? And I'm also his living arms. And then Lil Spicy, obviously my fiance. Honestly, we don't fight as much as like people would assume, because he's always, we have a backwards work schedule, so he's working when I'm not working, and I'm not working when he's working. Anyway, so we don't fight as much as people think that we would fight, being that close. But we do talk about fighting all the time, and like half of our phone calls are just theory about fighting, which is always really fun. And then yeah, shout out to Ender. He like, we make time, we go over video review, like he makes an effort to like video me fighting, gives me good pointers, really like taking it. They're both being very constructive in my fighting career and everything like that. Shout out my unit, because all those people have been with me basically since I started fighting, and before. They all gave me my name before I was a part of the unit. Love those guys. And I'm gonna shout out anyone who's been willing to have a really fucking weird conversation with me about fighting, about tournaments, about non-men's tournaments, about anything. I've had the wildest fucking conversations about theory, what you should do before tournaments. Shout out to you, Tanny. I loved our conversation about like tournament prep, and then I had a really interesting conversation with Cal Jaden at SKBC about non-men's tournaments, and like I've just had like really interesting conversations with people all around at different events and stuff about fighting in general, and like how people feel about fighting culture and different things like that. And I've had a really great time talking to all those people. I'm gonna shout out Austin Fighter Practice. It's where I fight the most often. It used to be called Torch Practice. That's because it's mostly torches. And most of them have their warlords. So when I raised my hand earlier, it's because I fight like 6 warlords a week.
I've been to Torch Practice. I've been to Torch Practice. It was brutal. It was a good time.
It's brutal. It's great. I've been fighting at Torch Practice since I started.
Wild.
Hell yeah.
That's how I learned how to fight. Was just being beat up on. So those are my big shout outs. Yeah, I love all of the conversations I've had. I'm happy with all of the people that have been very supportive. There's like so many more people on my list. There's like so many shout outs that I would give for people for talking to me about garb and arts and sciences and how we should fix judging and ANS stuff and things of that nature. And people have been really supportive of me, my business, everything. So it's been really nice.
Well, go ahead.
I forgot to shout out my accountability buddy Pickles. He's been like making sure I've been going to the gym and keeping me on top of shit. And I'm not going to shout out Hugo because I just want to see his reaction when I don't shout him out.
I'm gonna say good job, Pickles. Everybody needs a gym accountability partner.
So
shout out to all the homies.
So I imagine having a fiance who's a warlord, that probably helps a little bit in terms of, you know, the come up and that kind of thing. So I don't, you know, Horus, I think we talked about this. I just unfortunately went through a breakup, you know, fairly recently. And that brings us to our second sponsor for the for this show.
That's a segue.
Whoa.
The you know, this episode is also sponsored by Huddle Max Consulting and Wellness Relationship Series. They're putting on a relationship series on November 3rd and 17th, talking about relationship red flags. So you can sign up now if you'd like. There is limited availability. They talk about things like pre-post informational, love bombing, insecure attachments, and limerence, coping strategies, stuff like that. So again, this episode is also sponsored by Huddle Max. So, you know, I awkwardly segue into our next sponsorship. But
Thank you, Huddle Max.
This is a good segue. I was.
it's pretty. I forgot to tell you.
That caught my attention.
Yeah.
My therapist was like, "Hey, you can have a free session if you promote this thing," and I was like, "Bet, I know exactly what to do." But I want to thank Mad Laddie and Saan for joining us for this topic. We've got an ad break that ends in 25 seconds, so I'm going to draw out this thank you for at least 20 more seconds. Thank y'all so much. Do it.
If you like garb,
Wait, no, you got to wait till the commercial break's over. That's why I was drawing it out. Come on, Maddie.
obviously I don't know how this works.
But I seriously thank you guys for coming, sharing your story. Really appreciate it. And if you have any shout outs or promotions that you'd like to do for yourself, please do so now.
Yeah, if you like garb, come shop my garb, Gremlin Garb. I have a website now.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
also at Elder Squirrel Emporium. So if you see Elder Squirrel and you're like, oh, this is some sick garb, let me know. If you're like, this garb needs some work, theoretically, you can let me know.
So you said you have a website for Gremlin Garb. Do you want to share that website into the chat for people, and then or just you can say it out loud
Sure,
too.
it's just gremlingarb.com. I bought the rights to the name.
Nice.
It's gremlingarb.com.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
The pictures on there are shit. So if you need better pictures, let me know. I'm still
Okay.
working on getting photos and shit out there. But yeah, I have all the
That'd be
basic
great.
stuff, and then I do a lot of custom orders. So I have pictures of a lot of my custom orders. I have a team of like 10 seamstresses now that all do custom orders as well. So if you're interested in something, we do have like a 3 to 6 month wait list, but that's okay.
That's okay.
It'll get to you eventually.
It does.
Oh, yeah.
Order now. Get on the wait list now, so that when it's event season next year, you've got some fresh new Gremlin Garb to show off.
Absolutely. I've also figured out how to do embroidered trim
Okay.
Sweet.
Okay.
and screen printed trim.
Okay.
So if you're interested, I think it's pretty cool.
I might be getting on that wait list soon.
Yeah. San,
Some garb.
you got anything you want to plug?
Yeah, I want to plug myself. I'm gonna be at war. Come fight me.
Oh yeah. Let's get after
Come
it.
up, introduce
Oh
yourself.
yeah.
Yeah. San's gonna be at war. We're all gonna be at Winter War. Not Horus. Everybody
Yeah.
else.
You, Horus.
I'd say I'm
Yes.
lame, but I would.
Nah, Horus, you're cool.
You work for a living.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Alright.
I'm so excited to work again in like 20 minutes.
Yay.
Thank you.
It's okay.
Thank you both. We got a few more housekeeping things. Horace, let's talk about our WWE style promo winners. Drum rolls, please. I don't have a drum roll sound effect. You ready for this? It is first place is Pickles. Second place is Mac Truck. Congratulations, congratulations. Both of you will get to co-host the bench with us in the future. So we haven't figured that out yet. I'm going to get with you. Yours, Cord, it was a touch long. It was a touch dark.
A little bit.
But all three were really, really good. It was actually kind of we all were like, Pickles is really good. He has to be in there. But it was actually a hard decision to kind of figure out who won. But at the end of the day, Pickles first place, Mac Truck second place. You know, and then I also want to plug on Sundays we are doing the bench recap. You know, it's a show. We just did our first show last Sunday. It was a lot of fun. And we're going to be doing a show this Sunday talking about war.
Yeah.
So
I love war.
War is so good, and we're going to tell you guys all about how war went. Can't wait to do it.
Hell yeah.
And then let's see. So closing time. Thank you very much for watching the bench. You know, I love you guys. I really appreciate you guys that you come and watch us every week. And then everybody checking us out on YouTube. Like, seriously, this, you know, you guys are the reason why we do this. So, like, you know, really appreciate it. And looking forward to seeing you guys at war. Peace.
Thanks so much.
The wind howls, the sky grows dark, for Glenn the warlord leaves his mark. With sword in hand, left raised in might, he cuts through shadows, steals the night. Hoist the blade, for Glenn we cry, steel in hand and fire in eye. And God feels to bell, and God sure he'll fight and win forevermore. Hoist the blade and let it gleam, the warlord reigns in every dream. The Lord gives wars, his foes would fall. With Glenn's fierce blade he conquers all. In darkened fields where kings have bled, his left hand strikes and fills with dread. Hoist the blade, for Glenn we cry, steel in hand and fire in eye. And God feels to bell, and God sure he'll fight and win forevermore. Hoist the blade and let it gleam, the warlord reigns in every dream. Into Goryer's wars, his foes would fall. With Glenn's fierce blade he conquers all. In darkened fields where kings have bled, his left hand strikes and fills with dread. Hoist the blade, for Glenn we cry, steel in hand and fire in eye. And God feels the bell, and God sure he'll fight and win forevermore. Hoist the blade and let it gleam, the warlord reigns in every dream. The warlord stands against his steel, the mighty know, the weak will kneel. His legend grows, a rising tide, a warrior spirit at his side. From Texas plains to the Ternanese ring, the songs of Glenn they rise and sing. A master's blade, a teacher's hand, he forges warriors across the land. Hoist the blade, for Glenn we cry, steel in hand and fire in eye. And God feels to bell, and God sure they'll fight and win forevermore. Hoist the blade and let it gleam, the warlord reigns in every dream. The left-hand sword, the undefeated man. In every fight, it's Glenn who stands. Hoist the blade, the battle's nigh for Glenn, the warlord will never die.